What's up, everybody? My name is Rich. I'm here with Mitch.
Hi.
And we're here to talk about Assassin's Creed 4. So, by now, you guys have probably seen the trailer. Maybe you watched the live stream this morning, read my article, but you might be wondering one thing. What did we think of the game as it was presented to us? So let's get right into it. Mitch, what did you think?
I thought, as I always do, and as everybody always does, that on paper and in motion, everything, the pitch was incredible. We got to see a lot of cool stuff. We heard a lot about the ambitions, the cool ideas and goals behind Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, you know, like open-ended exploration, pirate ship combat, new cities, tons of locales, big areas, lots and lots and lots and lots of exploration, treasure hunting, all that stuff sounds awesome.
Sure.
I think that I am going to reserve judgment until I actually get to see the game. We didn't actually get to see any of the game in action.
Right, so for like full clarity, we saw a lot of what you guys saw. You can actually see the 2 trailers that have been released behind us. And we also saw some in-game or in-engine footage, actually.
Right.
So it's not indicative of how you actually play the game. So there's no user interface on there.
Your typical trailer shot stuff of dudes leaping through the air and fighting, but
slow-mo, leaping towards you, that sort of thing, but
Yeah.
not like how you would actually play the game.
Sure. We did get to see some of the combat in action, but it was like the camera's revolving around it, so you don't get an idea of how Edward Kenway, the new character, actually plays.
Yeah, so you sit there and you're kind of like, okay, well, how will this game feel and also just look generally when I'm actually with a controller in my hand and I'm playing it? And that was something I think that probably both of us felt for Assassin's Creed 3, where it looked really, really good, but when you actually sit down with the controller, you're like, well, you know, maybe this doesn't quite look the way I saw it over the past 6 months.
And that's my worry with 4, and that's why I'm kind of like cautiously optimistic. I'm so excited to be excited about Assassin's Creed again.
Yeah.
Because 3 was so disappointing for me. I didn't like the character, the cities didn't interest me, and most importantly, the mission structure was so sterile. Nothing about it was interesting. It seemed very scripted. It seemed to very much want to tell me its story that I didn't find interesting, rather than letting me be involved in the times.
Yeah, 3 was an interesting case for me because I really loved the idea of the American Revolution, and you know the history of that is really interesting to me. But then, you know, when you're sort of in that and playing in that, all I could keep, the thing that kept coming back to me is I was like, you know, Boston's kind of boring when I think about it compared to something like Venice or all the sort of crazy exotic places from the previous games. And the thing I love about 4, at least, is that it's pulling us back to something a little more exotic, a little more sort of romantic, if you will. I love games like Wind Waker, where I have freedom to explore, and so the idea of like sailing the ocean and getting in fights with those ships, and you know, I think there's about 50 or so locations that you're able to really travel to, and then the 3 main cities. I really like that idea, and if you really truly do have that kind of freedom, again, it's sort of like, will I actually have that much freedom when I play the game? That sounds amazing, and that's what they're saying, so let's, you know, I hope that's the case, right?
Yeah, they seem to be taking a cue from Far Cry 3, which is like, I love that game.
Yeah, and I mean, they even told us that some of that team
is now working on Black Flag, which is great.
More of that, more Far Cry 3 team everywhere.
Yes, get them involved in everything.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, but I mean, as it stands now, I am tentatively excited. Like, I want to be more excited than I am. I am not down on the game at all. I'm just waiting for more.
Let's see more, yeah.
Yeah, because I still feel like the game is announced. Great. That's it. That's where we stand, right? Like, we know it's coming. Cool. When you want to show me more, I'll be here.
Yeah, and I mean, I love the vision of it. I mean, I am a huge Pirates fan. I actually love, you know, the Pirates of the Caribbean movies.
Yeah.
Yes, well, I love the first 3. I don't really like the 4th one. And I get all the controversy about 2 and 3, but I do like them. And they're actually going for a very different take here. They're actually wanting to do sort of what they're calling like the HBO take, which is like the mature, edgy, you know, Sons of Anarchy type stuff. And that's cool, because I like all those shows, so that's great. Let's do the real history, you know, let's not do the crazy, like, Kraken stuff from Pirates of the Caribbean. So I do like that. You know, and because I like all of those eras, this definitely appeals to me. I also, like you, thought Connor was a little dry and a little dull. And, you know, when it comes to these games, Assassin's Creed or otherwise, I got to care about the main character. If I don't care about the main character, what am I doing?
Totally,
you know?
and that was Altair's problem.
Yeah.
Which is what Ezio fixed, so hopefully...
Ezio really did.
I would love for Edward to be the Ezio to...
Now here's the thing. So one of the big sort of points they're making about you know, this new game is it's the Kenway saga, right? So it's the grandfather of Connor and the father of Haytham. But since you didn't...
we all loved that story so much.
Well, so that's the thing.
I care so much about this family.
So you didn't like Connor. Do you care that you get to see his grandfather? Does that add to this at all? Or?
Not at all. That does not excite me whatsoever. I have little to no interest in the Kenway family at all. I thought Haytham was interesting. We saw his story. We saw the important bits. We got to see him be a badass, all that stuff. I'm sure that, you know, you don't become that person without that father figure being who he is. And we know that Edward is, kind of a hard ass. He's selfish. He's kind of a narcissist. He's very high on himself.
Does that excite you as a character? Are you a little worried for that character? I mean, he's different, right?
Yeah, so on one hand, I think Edward could be really interesting as this almost anti-hero that it's like, man, this guy is mean and he's callous and he's becoming an assassin and it's all getting to his head. Like, there's a lot of potential there for his balloon to pop,
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, it could also just be this person that I don't want to play because he's annoying and mean and kind of terrible.
Yeah, if he's too much of a narcissist, I'll get annoyed, But if you have the right kind of rough edge and he's sort of the bad guy that you sort of love to hate, like,
if
from...
you hate them.
Yeah, or like if it's Vic Mackey from The Shield, or, it's a lot of the lead characters from Sons of Anarchy and some of these, like, edgy shows. Like,
it looks a little bit like Jax.
Yeah, I mean, those are the guys where you're like, hell yeah, Or like, the common sort of joke about Edward is that he's kind of like Sawyer from Lost.
Yeah.
And that's a sort of lovable bad guy that's kind of, you're like, oh, you're a jerk, but that's okay.
Yeah.
And I think that would be great, but yeah, if you don't hit that character mix right, you're not going to be too eager to play as him. But I think they did a really good job with Ezio. I thought that character arc over those 3 games was pretty damn good. So, here's hoping. So, final thoughts. Maybe the highest of the, high point, like for you, and the lowest point for you.
High point, I love the ambition. I love the goals. I love everything they're telling me.
Mm-hmm.
Low point, I haven't seen any of it. And I don't, after Assassin's Creed 3, I recognize this is a bit of a different team. But after AC3, like, I am not convinced they can pull it off.
Now what will convince you? Is it actually having the controller in hand and being like, okay, this is what this game is? Or if they say, here's some footage, here's with the user interface on, does that satisfy you?
It's not even seeing like a gameplay demo. I feel like I need to actually sit down and play it for 30 hours.
Sure, because we're in an era where now a gameplay demo, like where someone's technically sitting there with a controller, can actually seem far better than the actual game is when you're actually playing it.
I mean, and that was AC3's problem. It was interesting and it was cool to watch somebody play. You got to see the climbing through trees and the snow and the way you can fight wildlife and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But in the grand scheme of AC3, doing all of that for the 10, 20, 30 hours was really boring because there wasn't any soul to it.
Yeah, and you're mentioning sort of the progression of the game and the length of the game. I think one of the messages that the game's director sort of brought across when we saw the game that I really, really like is that they're going through missions, trying to free them up a bit.
Yeah.
Not saying do A, B, and then C, but just go straight to C, however you want.
Figure out your A and your B and your alternative plans.
Exactly, and they said, if you're in a jungle environment, then that's more environment like the frontier traversal. If you're in a city, it's a little more like the city, and you're just, and they said that, which is a strange sort of comparison to make, but they said that the kill missions in Assassin's Creed 1 actually inspired them a bit, where it's just like, go get him.
Yeah.
And I kind of like that idea. That's an interesting idea. Conversely, though, you're supposed to be able to swim underwater in this game and explore, and that has me
that's a weird
concerned.
concept to me.
That's hard because it's like, not only do you need the freedom of mobility to move in the water, but you still kind of need your camera flexibility, especially if you're like treasure hunting. So how many joysticks does that take? Like, what
people already hate the control scheme of that game, and now you're like applying it to a totally new physics system. It's gonna be weird.
And I'm also curious, like, where do I go underwater? Can I just go underwater everywhere, or is it just like this fish tank? So there's definitely some questions to answer there, and how that game sort of translates. We're used to Assassin's Creed being land-based, city-based, and even the frontier was a huge leap for the series. And now I'm underwater. I do like the ship idea, though. That was a great highlight for me of AC3, and the fact that they're building it out with a crew and more weaponry and more enemy types. That's pretty cool too. So
at this point, like, it has my curiosity.
Yeah. I think probably comparatively, like, I'm probably a little more optimistic, but that's because I like pirates, man. I mean, who doesn't love pirates?
I hope you're right.
Yeah. So for all things Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, stay tuned to IGN and be sure to leave us your thoughts in the comments below.